Some more great properties. And by the way, we need more. So if you're watching this and you've got a nice home to sell, or even any home to sell for that matter, we need to hear about it because believe it or not, we're actually short of stock and we need to find properties to sell. That's my plug on our own show, so I suppose that's okay. That Aldana property did sell before auction. We mentioned that right at the start of the show. I hope you like the look of it. It's just a great home and well done to the purchaser. Now, Chris Gill is in the studio with us, and Chris, we're just in the middle of some questions. We've got a couple of email questions. I wouldn't mind asking you from Kelly from Hindmarsh. How important is it to have a building inspector look through a property before you put an offer on it to purchase?
Well, I think there's 2 points. You can, the actual time you engage a building inspector, you could take a risk and get one before contract and then go through the expense and find out the vendor doesn't accept your offer. The advantage of doing it beforehand is you can then clothe your offer depending on what the building inspection reveals. And if there's some work to do, you can find out the cost of the remediation and perhaps then use it as a bit of a leverage with the vendor to say, look, this is what I've got to spend, this is what I'm offering, and this is why I'm offering it. The other alternative is to do the inspection in your cooling off period, provided you have one.
Yeah,
so,
which is a common way to do it because it takes the conditions out of the contract and help you with your negotiating.
It does, yeah. And if you do find something that is significant, you can still renegotiate with the vendor, or the vendor might be prepared to fix up. If it's a leaking gutter, easily fixed, they might say, look, I'll just fix it. The purchaser gets what they want, the vendor gets the sale and everyone's happy. They
get a bit grumpy when you come and renegotiate though.
they do, but that's the risk you run by...
That or nothing, I guess.
It is, yeah.
Yep. And now, Chris, another question, Hayden Manuel, and wanting to know at what point would you nominate a conveyancer or solicitor to act?
I think you need to, either prior to signing the contract or before the cooling off expires. There's information that unless you're a seasoned buyer, you're not going to understand the documentation, and you need someone to be able to explain it to you, because once it's provided to you, if you fail to act, then you buy it the way it is. So if you miss something that would have been otherwise picked up, you might kick yourself.
Now, Chris, I know that you're not in the front lines of the market, but you see the back end of all of the sales. So you deal with all these different real estate agents and you see what actually happens. What's happening in the market from what you can tell from where you see it?
At the moment, I think it's quite buoyant. There's discussions between vendors and purchasers. This time last year, maybe those discussions weren't happening. The vendors had a price, the purchasers had a price, and they didn't get to negotiate. Now, purchasers are prepared to pay a price, vendors are meeting that market, and there are a lot of deals that are now happening because they get the chance to negotiate. And I think the pricing, people accepting where the prices are now from both parties.
And how do you see 2013? What's the Chris Gill crystal ball about the market for this year?
Be great until they call an election, and then it might slow down a bit. So I think this year will be good. I think last year we had low volumes and a bit of concern. This year, I think the volumes will pick up, and that's the key. That increases the market. Everybody's in a buoyant market. If properties are selling, everybody's happy, and I think I'm looking forward to this year.
Thanks for your time, Chris. Now let's go to hot property. Well, that's the end of the show, and don't forget it is Australia Day this weekend. All the peaches are ripening, the fruit's on the tree, the grapevines are looking really, really good at the moment. Life's good. And for those of you that have been watching the Australian Open, we're over there for the final, so I can't wait for that. And don't forget Saturday, put a lamb on the barbecue. You know you got to do that. And make sure also that you're going to look at some property. That is the great Australian dream. Next week we're in the city of Adelaide and we'll have a look at how it is living in the city, look at a magnificent property. So we'll see you next Wednesday. Don't forget we're live or interactive 1 o'clock. And in the meantime, let's go and look at some hot property.